Hello, and welcome to the Patron exclusive AMA. This is the gathering for the month of December. Every month, my Feather Wolf and Dragon Fox tiers of Patreon get together for these private live streams. And as the name suggests, it is an Ask Me Anything event. So during the show, you guys can ask me absolutely anything. And as I'm doing a demo, I will answer your questions. If you're watching a recording of this in the future, you obviously can participate in the chat, but please do enjoy the demo and consider joining the Feather Wolves so that you can play with us next month. I am here with tech support, who is helping me run the show. Once again, all of my live shows
Hello.
are done with tech support.
I have a list of things that I'm going to try and break today. It's a very long list. It's right here on this piece of paper. I'm not going to show it to you.
Break them so that he can fix them.
Well, yeah, because I have to justify my existence on the planet.
At least on the show. All right. So the demo that you guys requested today, I put it up to a vote on Patreon, and you guys were actually tied between dramatic lighting on portraits and dark skin tones. So I've combined the two topics, and we're going to do dramatic lighting on dark skin tones. And to prepare for the show, as always, I did a full coloring so that we can reference it. And a couple of weeks ago, I made a very short Instagram video of a time-lapse, very highly stylized time-lapse that's only 60 seconds long. And I posted it on Instagram. Let's watch it now. So from that tiny, really quickly stitched together Instagram video that you guys saw on your tiny phone screens, 3 of you already went ahead and colored the picture that I have prepared for the show and did such an amazing job that I wasn't even sure that you need the show, that you need the lesson and the demo. So I am so proud of you guys as colorists. I want to show the 3 colorings that were submitted and talk about them a little bit. And if we can show that slide of the 3 colorings.
We can. I just discovered something that I broke, and I'm very excited that while you're showing the colorings, I will get to fix it.
And now we will show that slide of the 3 colorings. And they can still hear me, correct?
Yes, they can.
Okay. So Cindy, Mel, and Lori each completed this coloring all on their own without the demo, without the tutorial, and without talking to each other, just based on that nearly monochromatic little Instagram flick that I posted. And this is some of the best work that you guys submitted. I am so impressed. But the thing that makes me the happiest, and the thing that makes this a great demo, is how different they are. Each one is done in a completely different color palette, which once again demonstrates my point that I always point out during the shows, that the colors don't matter. It's the contrast that matters, and the combination of the colors that you've chosen your color palette. So looking at Cindy's coloring, she went more for warm chocolate and orange and pink tones, with very little contrast on the skin, but with perfectly placed directional lighting, and everything is very consistent in the color palette. In the middle, we have Mel's coloring, which has very dramatic lighting that is perfectly executed. I see that her pencils are a little bit different from Cindy's. I can't even tell if Cindy's is done in pencils or maybe in pastels or paints, but the texture on Cindy's coloring is almost like an impressionist painting. With Mel, it's clearly pencils, but the gradient is done just as beautifully, just as perfectly. And you can see that the light is coming from the top and the left. It's very strong light, and it's 100% accurate to what would have happened in real life. And I especially love the gradient transition. That's like a yellowish light between the white glare and the brown of the skin. Very well done. And last but not least, Lori's coloring that she almost gave up on, which is crazy. It's once again one of her best colorings. She posted it in many coloring groups, and everyone's going crazy over this coloring. When Lori showed me the first stages, she started with white highlights on the skin and the dark shadows that she did in one solid color. And it was amazing. It was the perfect way to start. She established her light, she established her shadow, and even at that stage, it was already an amazing coloring. And then she decided that she wanted to give up on it because she said the tone was too red, which I talked her out of it. She slept on it, and when she looked at the coloring the next day, she was like, oh, I should press on. And I'm glad that she did because it came out absolutely beautiful. So you guys should absolutely be proud of your work. It's incredible. I will show you some of the tricks that I use while working on dark skin tones, and we'll go through a whole new coloring together. So maybe you will pick up some tricks that you haven't thought of in your own coloring. And I'm curious to see if the new versions of your coloring of this page will be at all different, better, not better, different. I don't know. Better, not better is a very complicated subject, which we will also talk about today. But of course, it all comes down to your personal feeling about your work matching the goals that you've set for yourself. And before we jump into coloring, I have one more subject to address. Cindy asked me to talk about sepia tones. She asked me to evaluate her coloring, which you see on the screen right now, and to answer her if she has done it correctly in sepia tones or not. So in order to answer that question, I have to explain what sepia is. Many of us know sepia photographs, but the truth of it is sepia as a term came out way before photography was invented and the brownish color photographs came to be. It was originally a painting style, and it used these tones. You could pick any color. It started with gray, brown, and green as the base tones, but it evolved into using a whole bunch of different brown tones. These are the tones that I got from Cindy's coloring. That I see on the page. Actually, that grayish blue tone, I think, is a trick of the light of the camera. I think it was a little bit of a glare on the page when she took the photo. So she may not have used the gray blue pencil, but the other 5 colors are the main colors that I see in her photo, in her coloring, and they are absolutely in line with the definition of a sepia coloring. But there are two kinds of sepia. You can go for a traditional painting or coloring that is done in sepia tones using these or many more browns. There's a sea of brown colors out there. I don't even know how many, but there are a lot, and each one of them can be broken down into this gradient palette like you see on the screen right now. These are here, they're coming up now. These are all the brown tones that exist, and each one has its own specific name, and each one of those blocks can be demonstrated as the whole gradient block that we just saw on the previous slide. So using any of these colors, you can combine them, and as Cindy did, make a beautiful coloring that is in traditional sepia tones. And you can see that some of them look like they're red, and there's green, and there's orange, and there's even something that looks kind of blue and gray and cream. Like, you have a lot of colors to play with and still be technically within the sepia range. You certainly don't need to use all of them. I think that one of the strongest points of Cindy's coloring is that she only used 5 or 6 main colors. And I'm a big fan of that. Just because you have an entire palette doesn't mean that you need to use all of them. So now going to photography, if you were to take a black and white photo, you would have your black and white gradient. This is what we call grayscale. You go from black on the top left to through grays, all of the grays that exist, to get to white on the bottom right. So if you were to take the same principles but apply a brown filter over it, any of the browns that you can pick from the giant brown palette selection that I chose you, and use just that one brown, but take it all the way up to the darkest brown on the top left and to nearly white on the bottom right without introducing any other colors. What you're looking at right now is a single color. It just shows all the tints and tones of that color, but the color is one. So if you wanted to go for a sepia photograph effect as opposed to a sepia painting effect, you would pick just one brown, and using the tints and the tones of the brown that you chose without introducing any other colors, make your painting that way. Cindy's coloring would look like this. That would be the sepia photograph. So you wouldn't be able to use the pink for the roses or the orange for the frame. Nothing on the raven. It's literally a black and white photo, but instead of black, you're using brown. But I think sometimes that's certainly a really cool effect. I would go for a higher contrast if I'm using this style. I think that in Cindy's case, actually the way that she did it is a stronger effect because it shows more character. This is a little bit flat. If I would use this if I'm actually conveying that this is an old photograph, so I would add some other effects to it. But you can see that now it's coming up as what Cindy has created. I think her version is a lot stronger. It's a lot more alive. It's still in the sepia tones, but I feel like I have more emotions. Like this makes me feel things as opposed to the other one.
It's like a colorized black and white photo.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a colorized black and white photo. So yes, Cindy, to answer your question, you did create a sepia colored painting, not a sepia colored photograph imitation, but I think you did an amazing job, and you should stick with the style. It's really cool. So there you have it. That's sepia, and I've had 5 other people, since you asked me this question, I had 5 other people reach out to me in the past week asking about sepia tones and if I could make a tutorial on that topic. So that's certainly coming up in 2020. And I think we've covered everything that I wanted to do in the intro, so let's just jump straight into coloring from here. This is the image that you saw on the little time lapse that I posted. This is the coloring. I finally finished it, and we will use it for reference. I will work on this uncolored image. I know you all have this page, so if you feel like coloring along, go for it. Or if you just want to watch and color later when you can watch the recording and pause and color at your own time, that's also a good idea. I know that a lot of you like to do that. So I may not go for the same exact colors as I did here, but we'll see what happens. I think the 3 examples that I showed you demonstrate quite clearly that color doesn't matter. It is the contrast and the application of gradients that are the most important thing. And actually for my colors, I didn't know exactly which ones I would use, because I used maybe 10 or 12 colors on this one, just on the skin. So the colors that I've pre-selected for this one are a lot of shades of dark purple, middle and dark grays. What is this? Oh my god, colors again. Chestnut, burnt ochre, more purple, lilac, a whole bunch of lilac shades. There's very little brown in here, just lilac and purple, pumpkin orange, a couple of shades of cream, blue just in case we need it for the shadows, white of course, and a 10% cool gray for the blending of the highlights. So I actually encourage you not to use the same exact colors as I'm using. I encourage you to find the pencils that you have that are more or less in this color scheme, and use what you have to build up the tone that makes sense to you in your light on your paper for your character. But I will show you the colors. I will call out the colors that I'm using anyway, just in case you do want to use the same exact colors as I do. These are, of course, Prismacolors, my favorites. So we will start with white. To establish the highlights, I'll be using my white charcoal for this and a Q-tip for blending. So as I'm doing that, let's see if we have any questions in the chat.
We don't have questions yet. We have lots of people saying thank you. They want to give you hugs. Everybody's praising everybody else's coloring.
Hugs.
Lori's going crazy, saying you make her want to draw.
Oh, Lori, by the way, I heard that you're not feeling well today. I'm really...
I'm sick.
Not
want to
feeling
go to
well. Well, hopefully we can cheer you up with this show. And what else is happening there?
Evelyn printed hers on tan paper versus the gray that you're using.
That's fine. Tan is fine. Either one will work the same way. Actually, I saw that there was a little debate going on Facebook after the Instagram video if I did it on tan or gray, because the old film effect that I used kind of makes it look gray in some shots and tan in other shots. And it absolutely doesn't matter for this. I chose gray for it because I want this skin tone to be a little bit on the cooler side. If you use tan, it will be a little bit on the warmer side. And also, I tend to choose gray over tan 90% of the time, because with this paper, I like the texture of tan better. They're very similar, but tan just has just a little bit more tooth. So for me, I will pretty much always go for gray these days, but tan is perfectly fine.
Export's wandering off to break something.
Oh.
Everything's going too perfectly.
See, everything is too smooth. We need some drama. There needs to be a conflict and a resolution. So the other thing that I found very interesting in your guys' coloring of this page that you've already submitted is that everyone chose the same light source. And there are two reasons that I can think for that, to explain that. One is it's the same light source as I used in the video that you saw. And second, I did give you a lot of clues, a lot of hints when I created this drawing as to where the light should be. And I've suggested the shadows with some sketch marks here, and these lines are here just to suggest exactly where the shadow will be. And generally on this style of a drawing, the areas that have no sketch marks and are the cleanest and most open areas, that will be your lightest part, because I don't want to contaminate it with any drawing lines. Protomolecule. We've been watching The Expanse.
We've been watching The Expanse way more than is healthy.
Does anyone know The Expanse, the show?
Tell us in the chat if you know The Expanse.
Yes.
If you watch it, if you love it.
And tell us nothing else, because we don't know how far.
Right, we're only almost all the way through season 3 right now. So if you're a season 4 person, keep your mouth closed as far as spoilers go. Less tech support, break the whole stream.
Right. We'll have to find a way to forget what you told us, and that's never a clean process.
We really need a diagonal on this table so it doesn't wobble so much.
Yeah, it does wobble quite a bit. But do you guys see the table shaking, or?
Must be an earthquake.
Must be an earthquake. It's me wiggling my butt.
Wiggling your butt, that's right.
Okay, so I'm just adding the white in the areas that are where the light lands directly. And when we talk about light sources, I brought my creepy doll head again to be our model. So the head is turned mostly like this. When I talk about light sources, on a two-dimensional page, it's easy to think of light coming from the left or coming from the right, but you must remember that the object you're painting or coloring is three-dimensional, and the illusion that you're creating is the illusion of a three-dimensional object. So the light isn't coming from the left, it's coming from the left and in front. So if this was my lamp, the lamp would actually be like here, closer to us, and probably at a 45-degree angle to the subject. So when the light hits, it hits these areas right here, the ones that are closer to us. So the cheek, this part of the forehead, the nose, and a little bit on the chin. And obviously this model isn't very realistic, but at least we get a general shape of a human head, or some kind of a head. Not really sure if that doll is very, very human-like, but she's been very helpful in the studio. Okay, so if you're doing this on white paper, obviously you can skip this step. But one of the main reasons that I like working on tan or gray paper is that I can start with establishing my lightest areas. Okay, what else is happening there? I hear you typing. Or are you fixing things?
Oh, I'm not fixing anything.
Oh, thank you.
We're talking about The Expanse.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's seeing the table shake.
Is anyone watching The Expanse?
No.
Nobody knows about it.
Nobody knows about it.
We highly recommend it.
Sam says that our YouTube videos have evolved so much, and she bets that there's nothing out there like this with tutorials and tech silliness.
No, thank you. I remember Sam was with us during our very first Feather Wolf gathering, which was I keep wanting to say Skype, but it wasn't Skype. It was Zoom.
Zoom.
Skype,
not Skype.
Skype, not Skype. It was Zoom, and it was. I looked at it the other day, and it was awful. It was an awful. We had a great time, but we didn't have a demo yet. We were just talking. We didn't really know what to talk about. The video quality wasn't that good. Tech support was hiding behind the camera. We weren't really doing our whole 2-person act. We have evolved, and we hope to continue evolving and making these shows even better for you.
Every episode better. Everything, we learn something. Every time I break something, I try not to break that thing again. I find something new to break. I told Lisa today that my job on the show is actually to be the clown. Like the jester, the Joker. The Joker, yeah. So she can like throw stuff at me or hit me in the face with a rubber chicken. I'll let you tell that story.
I was thinking about bringing the chicken and hitting you with it if something breaks. Let me just switch to this next color. This is French gray, 70% French gray. I like using French gray for establishing my base shadows because it's a little bit brownish. And we learned from Kat in our last live stream why French gray is called French gray. Do you remember?
No. But it was really smart.
It was really smart, and it had something to do with like Victorian wallpaper. And
it was something like when you see it, you will feel like you're in France or something.
Yeah, like it's softer. It's more like an espresso color, like a light coffee with cream or something instead of just gray. So I will use this I call this like a neutral gray because it's not cold or warm. It's kind of just a thing that will allow me to put shadows in. So I will add the shadows in these parts of the drawing that I have the sketch marks, and I will add it very lightly. I'm intentionally holding my pencil further back. I'm trying to practice that, which allows for lighter pressure. So the rubber chicken. We have a rubber chicken. We have a whole box of like props and costumes and stuff. I have my hats and my ears, and we have a bunch of little farm animals that we painted, and, toy guns, funny things that we got from like 99-cent store. And among them is a rubber chicken. So, which was a star on one of Adrian's earlier shows. But yesterday he was doing another recording during which he was explaining that he was struggling with certain things that he was trying to accomplish in his...
This is for my channel.
For his channel. So in some techie way, he was having trouble, and we wanted to show it comically by every time that he says... Every time that he says that something doesn't work, I hit him with a chicken. This is the chicken. So we practiced it in front of the camera, and the idea was that the chicken I would stop right before the chicken hits him in the face, and he would act very dramatic, like there's a chicken behind me, isn't there? Oh my god! Like, you know that feeling when there's a chicken behind you? I just had that feeling. So, and I get that feeling with Kevin a lot. He creeps up on me. So
Kevin's the peacock, just in
Kevin's
case
the
y'all
peacock.
were wondering. It's not like,
it's not our neighbor
not
Kevin.
the other tech support or something.
No, my peacock is quite creepy sometimes. Well, so we practiced the moves, and he had his whole moves worked out where he would act very dramatic, like a whole wrestling match thing when the chicken is close to his face. Except one time I actually smacked him right in the mouth with the chicken. It was an accident. I didn't mean to, but it was so funny, and we did record it. It's there. We might share it with you. We should share it with them.
You can't share it
Not
right now.
not
maybe
not
next
right
time.
now, but like maybe on the next live stream, we'll be like.
What was the gray?
The gray is a 70% French gray.
Okay.
Any kind of a soft gray or a grayish brown would be even better. Not a regular graphite pencil though, because that regular graphite sketching pencils have that sheen to them that makes the page look a little bit glossy and shiny, and you don't want to do that. So not a standard graphite pencil, definitely a colored pencil, but a gray or a brown. And I'm applying it very, very lightly. So yes, we had a freak rubber chicken incident. I felt so bad, dude. I hit him right on the mouth, and it made the sound like pop, and pushed him back and everything. He's like, she actually hit me. So sorry.
It's okay. She's allowed to hit me sometimes. Only with a rubber chicken.
And only when the camera is rolling.
I mean,
It
you
was totally
know this
worth
happens
it.
in movies. You know that
Yeah.
like punches get missed and somebody smacks Ryan Reynolds in the face.
Hey, sometimes bullets get missed. Like The Crow.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
That was tragic. Yeah, I'm sure Ryan Reynolds gets injured a lot. Well, a lot of actors have all sorts of freaky injuries. Like Harrison Ford and his scar.
Oh, from the whip?
From the whip.
Sam is testing out specialty chocolates.
What kind of chocolates? How specialty?
Lind? I don't know
Oh,
how you say
yeah,
that.
we know that.
Do we?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, well, she found the Lind chocolate shop today, and she bought 2 of every flavor and is testing the champagne one now with tea before bed.
Ooh, nice. Well, let us know which flavor you like the most. I hope everyone has their appropriate beverage for the occasion. I have my coffee.
I have water.
Water is quite appropriate. It's, 35 degrees again outside? Celsius?
We have to turn off the air conditioning in the house when we do these.
Which we call the beast.
We have a whole house evaporative cooler system, but it's basically a big vent that just pushes cold air through the house, and it's really loud, and it's not possible to block it out when we do these, so we turn it off. So in addition to all of the other suffering that Lisa goes through, we're sitting here sweating.
That's right.
For you. Feel sorry for us, please. So right before the show, we crank it up so that we try and cool the house down as much as possible, and we've got windows open and stuff like that. It's not actually that bad.
Yes, but if I start turning bright pink, let me know.
If you begin to swoon.
If I begin to swoon. Oh, the heat!
I feel faint.
The heat!
Was that Gone with the Wind where she would fake swoon?
Yes, and also Elizabeth Swann would do it.
Elizabeth Swann. How could I confuse Elizabeth Swann? Pirates of the Caribbean with
Gone with the Wind.
2 classic films from the 20th century.
Hey, Pirates is classic.
Wow, we're getting the full range of gourmet here. Evelyn just had donuts with coffee.
Oh, wonderful. Donuts. We haven't had that in a while. Do we even have donuts here
We
in
don't
Chile?
have donuts here, not like that.
I don't think we have proper donuts here. Chile's not really big on pastries. They're really into bread. And like the dulce de leche thing.
Manjar.
Manjar?
Yeah.
Which is, what is that in English?
Manjar? Oh, it's like a caramel. It's kind of like a Nutella, but less like peanut butter and more like caramel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that.
So their cakes are layers of thin, like almost like flatbread with manjar in between them, and then frosted. So you get like 10 flatbread layers with
They're
manjar.
very sugary, too sugary for me.
And too sugary for her, yet on my birthday, she will buy an entire cake. And they only sell cakes for, 15 people or more. Yeah, because of course you buy a cake for a party. So she will buy a 15-person cake and basically
we'll eat it.
force me to eat it at gunpoint over 3 days.
Yes, every year he knows on his birthday.
It's your birthday, you're gonna eat the cake.
Yeah.
Eat the cake.
And by the end of it, he's like, "Are we done with the cake yet? Is it gone? We have one more day. Okay, I can do it. One more day. But then no more cake for a year." And it's true. I think we only eat cake once a year.
Yeah, it's like the Saturday cheat day where you eat all of the food that you can't eat during
Right.
the week, and then you just get grossed out, so you're okay for another week. But a week later, you're like, a box of cupcakes, or those little bags of powdered donuts, like the 500 powdered donut balls that you can get from the grocery store, or the little mini ones.
Those are dangerous because they're so little. You just keep popping them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And they know it too. They made them that way intentionally.
Yeah.
It's like if you eat a full-size donut, you have to make a decision to eat the second donut or the third donut. But with these guys, you just keep going.
Cops don't have that problem.
No, I don't think they do. But they're allowed. It's like part of their job description.
Sam says try buying a box of donuts and stacking them like a pyramid for a birthday cake.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You use like toothpicks to hold them in place.
Yeah. If only we could find donuts. Tish. Okay, so for the sake of this demo, I'm only gonna stay in the face area and the neck area. I'm not gonna do the whole shoulder and chest thing because you get the idea. It's the same kind of shading and the same colors. But when you do color a person, however much skin you have exposed, I would suggest that you do that you work systematically on the entire part that is skin. So if you have hands, arms, legs, whatever, do everything. Apply the white to all the parts that are exposed skin, then apply the shadows to all the parts that are exposed skin. That way you will stay consistent and you won't have any weird mismatched skin tones at the end where the hands are a slightly different skin tone than the face. So at this point, this is a good point to stop and think about light and shadow and how it's not at all about the skin color. The skin color itself will only show itself in the areas where we have the gradient happen between the dark parts and the light parts. Like this area right here is her skin color. And that's it. We only see it in the parts where the dark and the light meet. The rest of it is an illusion. Remember, we never draw a color what an object is or the color that it is. We draw a color what the brain perceives when the eye sees an object lit by sunlight or whatever light. So it's important to realize that. And at this stage where I have just gray and white, I can take this in any direction at all. This could be very pale skin and I can still pull that off. This could be a mid-tone kind of olive skin. This could be very dark skin. I can go like full black. This could be, if I wanted to do science fiction, this could be green or blue or purple. At this stage, I can take it in any one of those directions. So regardless of which color you imagine the skin tone to actually be on your character, establish this first, and if it makes sense to you in terms of light and shadow, then continue with your colors. But this literally, we can make this girl green right now, or purple. We're not going to, because on every show you ask me to color in green, and you know I don't like it.
Do you recommend working from the edge to the center? That's a question from Lori.
Yes. For gradients, I do. For instance, if I'm going... Well, it's interesting, because with white, I start out in the brightest parts, and then I make like little circles out, because it's a domed area. Her cheek is a little bit domed. So I start in the part that's the closest to me, and I color out to the parts that are further like this, and then I blend it with oh, it's cool, I can draw on her.
Yeah.
and then I blend it with the Q-tip to make it light. But then when I get to my shadows, I actually start at the edges, and I make it a little bit darker at the edges, and then I apply less and less pressure when I get closer to the white. So starting at the edge is a good way to ensure that your gradient comes out softly. Yes, that's a most excellent point. So now I will switch to a purple, actually. Let's see, which purple do I like? Looking for a purple that I like. I like this.
I like New York in June.
Black raspberry.
How about you?
So with dark brown skin, you get, when the light shines on it, you get a lot of purple tones. So black raspberry is a very cool one. I have also here black cherry and black grape. All very cool colors to use on skin.
You just said that dark tones become purple in certain light.
Yes.
You've been freaking out because Naomi Nagata's hair in The Expanse periodically is purple.
Purple. Maybe it's a trick of the
She has
light.
black hair.
Yeah.
She
has like jet black hair, and
it's pretty shiny.
It's very shiny, and it totally. There are parts in the movie where she turns her head, and it's totally purple. Nice catch. Yeah, it's probably an illusion.
Yeah, we're watching it, and Naomi's on the space station, and Lisa's like, "Oh, did she dye her hair purple?
Right?
Did she? Like she's a friend of ours. Did she color her hair?
Yeah, I guess.
Where do they get purple hair dye in space? I can't find it in Chile. They can find it in space. That's not right."
Yeah, nice. That totally explains it. I feel much better. I can sleep at night again.
Cindy asks if purple won't be interpreted as very dark skin.
If it will or it won't. Because dark skin is what we're going for.
She says, won't purple read as very dark skin?
Yes, and that's the idea. What we're practicing on this coloring is very dark skin. So this girl has very, 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 not very, very dark skin, but I imagine she's Haitian. So yes, that's exactly what we're going for. So perhaps there might be confusion because I use so much white on her skin, but this is a dark-skinned model. But the important thing to remember with dark skin, a lot of people make the mistake of coloring the whole face in very dark colors and not leaving that highlight. But in fact, human skin is very reflective. So even though it's not technically shiny, not like we're made of plastic, but it is highly reflective. You know how women are always powdering their nose so that they don't have the shine on their nose, and everyone wears so much makeup, like men wear makeup on the show when they're being recorded, right, because there's that shine on the face. And that's natural. Our skin is highly reflective, so a very dark skin tone will still result in these highlights that are almost pure white. And actually, check this out. This is a drawing of, oh my god, I'm like knocking everything over. I will show you a drawing that I did last night of Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, this is amazing.
This is a drawing that I did like less than 12 hours ago.
Yeah.
And Jimmy, of course, we all know, had very dark skin. And in this coloring, in this drawing, I have more white on his face than I have anywhere else on the drawing because he's being lit. The photo, this is from a photo. When this photo was taken, there was a lot of light on his face, on his hands. So you can see that, for instance, we can compare him. What else do I have in here? This is a girl that we used as an example in our face drawing tutorial. Does she show up? She's very, let's see. So this model is a fair-skinned person, and here's Jimi Hendrix. You can see that the amount of white on their faces is the same. Yet you can tell, like on a black and white photo, you can only tell from the features of the face and facial structure. And of course, everyone recognizes Jimi Hendrix, so we automatically know.
Nobody can mistake that stoned man's face.
Exactly.
Yeah,
or his epic hair.
Yep.
And this girl, her features are, well, I don't know, she might be part Asian, but I think she's like a white girl, clearly, with a very pale-skinned girl. But it doesn't matter what her actual skin color is, what his actual skin color is. What matters is contrast. And that's what I mean about black and white photography and sepia photography and coloring that imitates that. If you're going for sepia photography imitation, make sure to use high contrast, because if I just colored his face black, you wouldn't see any of the features on it. You wouldn't recognize him as the iconic character that he is. Here's another one. This is a Japanese character of mine. Same thing. You have a lot of white on the face. It's the color of the skin doesn't matter, and that's why practicing grayscale drawing and coloring, monochromatic, not necessarily grayscale, but monochromatic if you want to go into brown colors, is a very good idea, because you establish the light and the shadow, and that's how the human eye recognizes subjects. So a good tip that I would like to give you guys for practicing your coloring technique is, after you make a coloring, take a photo of it. Take a black and white photo of it specifically. So with our modern technology, with our phones, we can make photos black and white afterwards. So most of our phones have that option for just drop saturation all the way to black and white. Make your photos, the photo of your coloring, black and white, and that will reveal your light and shadow, so that you can see if you've added too much color to the parts of the subject that need to be lighter. So hopefully that makes sense. So this girl, imagine Jimi Hendrix, that's the kind of colors that I'm going for on her skin. But with lots of highlights, because you guys specifically wanted dramatic lighting also. So there's certainly situations where the light will be very soft and diffused, and you wouldn't get like pure white on her cheek, or like the photo of Jimmy where he had a camera spotlight in his face, which is why parts of his face are literally blown out. But you may have a character who's lit by candlelight, for instance, so it could be very low evening lighting or sunset, so you won't have the spotlight on their face. So of course you wouldn't have pure white on the cheeks, but you would still have a little bit of a gradient. You would have that difference between light and dark tones. So hopefully that made sense. Please do feel free to respond in the comments.
Oh, they're responding.
Oh, are they?
Oh, yeah.
What are they saying?
Oh my gosh, that's way cool. I stared at the smoke effect for ages. Amazing. There's an earlier question about, where did it go? Are you using both black cherry and grape? Actually,
yes, right now.
That might not have been for you. That might have been amongst each other. But whatever, you can answer too.
I'm using black raspberry right now. I will also use black grape later on.
But you're not actually using any black.
I'm not actually using any black, no. Oh, there's a bird on our window.
Can we tell them about the peeps?
Yeah, tell them about the peeps. You tell them.
Our house is heated by, I can't talk. We have two hot water heaters, one for the front of the house and one for the back of the house, that are heated by gas. And so around the hot water heaters, people don't steal it. There's like a metal lockbox. And this year, we have these little tiny birds.
A wren.
They're a type of wren.
Wren, yeah.
So we have these little tiny wrens that we call angry birds, because they look like the Nicelanders from Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
Because they move so fast, you don't ever see them move. You just see them twitch, and suddenly they're in a different position.
Yeah, like they're pixelated or something.
Yeah. So one of these angry birds made a nest in the heater box, and the first nest he made, I ripped out because I was like, that's going to totally catch fire. And he made another nest in there, and I went and looked at it and where he placed it, and it's not actually going to catch fire.
And we were like, oh, he rebuilt it. We should let him keep it.
So we let him keep it. And he sat on top of the heater box and he sang his beautiful little bird song.
The most beautiful song.
And then a girl bird came, and then one day there were little peep, peep, peep noises coming from inside the heater box.
So cute.
And then they got really loud. And then a few days ago, there were 3 very clumsy, awkward little baby birds on top of the heater box practicing their first flights. And so they flew. They're adorable. One of them was really scared.
Yes, one was very brave, and then the last one was just so scared. He kept holding onto the walls with his little feet and screaming. He's like,
adorable.
No.
So then they went back inside, and then we think they actually left, because a couple days later, Daddy Bird is out singing another sexy bird song, and he was throwing out feathers and sticks from the nest. So it looks like he cleaned house.
He's like, everyone out of my house.
Yeah, and we think he's got a new girl now.
Round 2.
And so now we have these new wrens that are flying around the house that haven't yet moved away, and one of them just landed on the windowsill and then flew away.
They're tiny. They're smaller than sparrows.
Yeah, they're itty bitty, and But they're not phantoms. Phantoms are the other ones.
They're not phantoms. No, phantoms.
We have this other bird. We don't know the name of it, but it's notorious for flying into windows at full speed and knocking itself out.
It's their thing. They see a glass window, they fly right into it. We call them phantoms.
There's a drone made by a company called DJI, and they're on the Phantom 4 now, which is pretty reliable.
Yeah, now it's amazing.
The Phantom 3 was notorious for, you can look on YouTube for Phantom videos. People are flying like next to a building or a cliff face, and the Phantom will just turn and fly into the cliff face.
It never fails. It's like they're programmed to do that. We always laugh at it. It's like there was one video where a guy was flying around the Grand Canyon. So there's nothing around, and the Phantom just turned and went straight into the Grand Canyon wall.
Yeah.
Like there's one obstacle for miles and miles and miles, and he found it.
And they accelerate, and then they smash.
Like they're suicide drones. It's crazy. Okay. So I've added my dark purple tone, and this can be any dark purple tone at all. And somebody asked about black. Very good point, very good question. I forgot to mention that, so thank you for pointing that out to me. I will not be using any actual black on this coloring. And I didn't use any actual black here either, not even for the eyebrows or the eyelashes. I built up all the dark tones with purple, blue, and orange. Anything else in the chat?
Nope. They are all just engrossed in watching you color.
Okay, then I will switch to my next color, which is
I like a Gershwin tune. How about you?
This is how it goes. I just look at my colors. I'm like, what will feel right here as the next step? And I think I'm gonna go with burnt ochre, which is kind of like an orangey middle brown. So this pumpkin orange will also work. Chestnut will also work at this stage. Any kind of a soft brown that's not too dark, not like a dark coffee brown, but more like a milk chocolate brown. And speaking of chocolates, what's Sam eating these minutes?
Oh, yeah, Sam, tell us about your chocolates.
We will wait for that response. In the meantime, since there are no actual... so just let me know when Sam updates us.
Yes, ma'am.
Or D's on chocolate.
Sitting there in a little chocolate coma.
This is the monthly AMA where the feather wolves gain 5 pounds. So the other thing that I wanted to address during this show that came up with several of you guys, the wolves, is talking about specific goals that you set for yourself and for your coloring, and knowing how to match those goals. And the way that this came up, and it keeps coming up with artists, with colorings, with colorists, with myself, is we keep making these art pieces, and then we look at them, and then it's up to us to have an emotional response to them. And of course we always do. We are either happy with what we've created, or we're not so happy with what we've created. Rarely do we create something we're like, I don't really care. We've put time and effort into it, and we probably had a good time. Like the process of coloring is usually a therapeutic time. It's a time when you relax and have fun, maybe watch a movie or a live stream. So it's supposed to be a relaxing, fun hobby during which you also pick up a few tricks to improve your skill. Because honestly, regardless of the pep talk that we all get, that we all just do it for the sake of doing it, and we color for the sake of coloring, but we do all want to improve. Even when I draw for the sake of drawing to relax, I always keep in mind that, how can I make it better next time? Because we are working on something pretty. If we just wanted a mechanical hobby like fishing or I don't know, something, playing with a yo-yo, I don't know, you might just lose yourself in the act itself. But even there, you always try to keep things interesting by trying to improve. And I think the improvement portion of it is in fact tied to keeping it interesting. Because if you're not learning, if you're not improving, then you get bored, and then you stop doing that as your hobby and pick up a new hobby. So a lot of times colorists, first of all, we are all really hard on ourselves. Like, I looked at that Jimi Hendrix drawing last night and I almost threw it away. because I'm like, oh, it's not exactly the way that I wanted it to come out. But then I looked at it this morning and I'm like, oh, actually it is. And it's important to catch that moment when you look at your creation right after having created it and realize that whatever you're feeling right after you finish the process of making it isn't real. You should really wait until the next day or a couple of hours later, take a break from it, go for a walk or something and look at it again, and you will see it with a completely new set of eyes. Because after you've spent so many hours with the work, you can't possibly judge it objectively. And it even, like, it actually physically looks different to you than it looks to other people. So after you take a break, your brain resets and you are able to see it more realistically, more the way that other people see it. So that's the first thing, is don't judge your coloring as soon as you finished it. You finished it, say, you know what, I'm going to go for a walk now, or I'm going to go get a cup of tea or something, or just go to bed and look at it in the morning to assess it. But I also get a lot of private messages from colorists where they send me their work to show it and to ask for my opinion. And I always give my honest opinion, but then I also get a lot of comments saying, well, or I ask them back, I'm like, well, how do you feel about it? Are you happy with it? And a lot of people are timid, a lot of people are humble, and many say it's all right, but it's not exactly what I expected, which is very interesting and very common. I also do that a lot, and that leads to the next question. Well, what did you expect? What was your actual goal when you started this coloring? And many people are unable to answer that question, or they answer it with something very vague, like, oh, I just expected it to be prettier, or more like this other colorist's work. And that's too vague. It's good to set goals, but your goals need to be specific.
And realistic.
And realistic, yes. You can't say, I expected this to be a Rembrandt, because you're not Rembrandt. You may be better than Rembrandt, but you will never be Rembrandt. Like, we're all ourselves, and each one of us has our own style. So be true to yourself, be true to your style, recognize that you do have a style, and that within that style, you have certain things that you've already mastered and certain things that you still have to learn. So, for instance, if you're coloring, like, I had a colorist contact me about a dress that she did on some other artist's page that she colored. That was a grayscale coloring, and she colored the dress and she showed it to me, and I thought it was beautiful, but she said it's not, it didn't come out the way that I expected. So I asked my regular question, well, what did you expect? And she says, I don't know, I guess I wanted it to be more glamorous. I said, that's an excellent start. You wanted it to be more glamorous, but that led us to discover that she didn't have a very clear picture past that. So a lot of times we have an idea of a concept in our head, but the concept isn't enough to start creating art. You need to have a clear image in your mind. And images come from seeing other images. Like, I always tell you guys that I don't just have this magical library of images that I reference in my head. They all came from somewhere. I look at a ridiculous amount of photos and art every day. And of course I draw in color every day. So for me, a lot of these images are already stuck in my memory bank, so I don't need to go and look them up because I've looked at them so many times that they're already in my head. But many times I still have to go and do research, actual visual research. For instance, for this dark skin tone, I looked at maybe 50 photographs of portrait photography from different angles, with different lighting, with different skin tones. And only after saturating my brain with those images, with those colors, with those light effects, was I able to sit down and first draw this character and then color this character. But I had a very specific image that I was working towards. So after speaking with this lady about the type of dresses that she liked, we went on Google Images together and we looked at different dresses and vintage photographs and the type of fashion that she likes, and we discovered that she actually likes dresses with like sparkles and sequins on it, and that's what she considers glamorous. But the way that the picture was drawn, it was a grayscale image, so a lot of the shadows were already suggested there, and it seemed like it was meant to be like a silk dress. So whatever she was doing to make it look like sequins just didn't work because she didn't even know that she was going for the sequence effect. Like in her mind, she just had this concept of glamour, and she thought that keeping that concept in her mind would be enough for the coloring to magically turn into that. But it's not. You need to have that reference photo or that reference idea, and then match it against it. And once you've done that and you look at your coloring, and for instance, you coloring a raven, look at raven photography, see what their feathers look like, and type of colors that you can choose for him if you want him to be realistic, or if you want it to be a fantasy raven or a watercolor raven. Look at watercolor paintings and see how that looks, how people color ravens in watercolor. But don't just say, oh, I want him to be kind of artistic, and then when it comes out the way that it came out, it doesn't match your vision. So I hope that makes sense. What do you think? Did it make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. In my line of work, we have objectives, and one of the things that we realize is important for goals is that they have to be measurable. So if you can't define the criteria for success in anything and a means to measure that success, then you won't actually know if you accomplished your goal. It's subjective. And what you want are goals that are objective. So when Lisa and I were talking about this before the show, I said, an example is, I'm not going to be able to sit down and draw something that looks like an M.C. Escher painting or drawing today. And if I look at an M.C. Escher drawing, and that's something that I want to be able to do, then I can identify 50 different things in there that comprise that drawing. And I'm not going to be able to make progress on all 50 of them, but I can identify one. And I can work to improve that one, knowing that here's where I am today, and I will have reached a goal when I can draw a straight line, or draw right angles, or draw circles, or something, whatever it is. And the second part about goals is that they need to be written down. If you don't write them down, well, there's two things. One, if you don't write them down, then over the course of time, you will change your understanding of the goal in your mind, and by the time you get a month down the road, you might remember it differently. Depending on how critical we are of ourselves, you may actually move the goal to a place that you can't attain. There's lots of psychological reasons behind that.
Wait, switching pencil. Hold that thought. Espresso, which is a really, really dark gray brown, which I will use for the darkest shadows over here. Continue.
So write the goal down so that you objectively can refer to it in the future. The second thing is that writing a goal down, in particular writing it down and sharing it with someone, does something in the brain where you are more likely to continue to work towards it. There's a whole range of psychological reasons behind this as well, but if it's truly something, this isn't just with art, this is with anything that you want to do. If it's truly something that you want to do, share it with somebody, set a timeline for it, and then practice. And practice is ultimately, with the drawing and the coloring, is ultimately what it comes down to.
Yep.
If it's going to take 100 hours to achieve a particular skill in coloring, and I'm just making that number up, well, you can figure out how long it's actually going to take as a function of how much practice. If it's 100 hours and you practice 2 hours a day, you'll get there in 50 days. If it's 100 hours and you accomplish 1 hour a year, well, you'll get there in 100 years. We all want to get to places as quickly as we can, and so we need to practice. For me, there are 1,000 different things on my list of stuff to learn. And as I get older, I learn more slowly. So I set aside time every single day to just work on one thing that I'm trying to learn. Like now I'm learning how to use a program called Adobe After Effects. When I look down at like a class that I'm taking and it says, oh, there's 50 hours of work, it sucks because I'm like, oh, it's 50 hours. That's a really long time. But if I just work on it for 2 hours a day with no objective for what I need to accomplish in that day, just I'm going to go through 2 hours of class, then pretty soon, a month or two down the road, I've only got a few hours left and I've picked up all of these additional skills. And as long as I continue to use those skills, then I can use them to stack other new skills. And suddenly a year from now, I look back and I'm like, wow, I've learned all of these things that I'm using today, and I'm in a totally different place than where I was. Mm-hmm. So it comes back to set clear, reasonable goals for yourself, write them down, optionally tell somebody else about them, and calculate how to measure them.
Like in our group on Facebook, that's a very easy way of doing it. Just when you're about to start a certain coloring, make a post, show your picture, well, obscured by a pencil, of course. Say that this is the page that I'm starting, and I'm going for an old vintage look, like these photos right here, for instance. And then say, I'll keep showing my work in progress shots and keep you guys updated on my work. And it's interesting for other people to see this as well. Like, everyone loves the work in progress shots. And also, I'd like to add that a lot of our judgment problems of our own work come from forgetting that we are the only ones who know the goals that we set. So when I look at a drawing of mine and I'm disappointed in it, everyone else looks at it and they're impressed by it. It's because they don't know what goal I'm measuring my emotion against. They have no idea. They just see the finished project and it looks amazing. But they have no idea that maybe I wanted to accomplish something completely different. So just because it doesn't match your expectation, it doesn't mean that it's not pleasant to look at for other people. So that's something that's important to keep in mind. Like, that happens to me all the time when people share their colorings with me, and I genuinely don't see what they don't like about it because they just show me the work without explaining what the goal was, and the work looks incredible. It makes me happy. It's beautiful. And then only through conversation do I discover that, because it doesn't actually match the color palette that you imagine, but nobody can possibly guess that. So it's impossible to look at our own work without remembering the goals that we set, which is why sharing your work is so important. Post it and let the people tell you what they actually feel. And most of the time, most of the people will actually give you their honest response, and it's usually very positive. So keep sharing.
There are some questions that floated by.
Okay, try to catch them. And do we have an update on chocolates?
I didn't see an update on
did we lose
chocolates.
Sam? Death by chocolates.
Cindy asked a while ago, if you were doing this with the brown sepia type of palette, would you do the shadows with purple still?
No. In Sepia, remember during the little Sepia demo that I did in the beginning of the show, if you're going for the photograph type, you will literally pick just one pencil. I would pick one brown pencil or whatever this is. This pencil is actually called Sepia. Look at that. I would pick just one pencil and that's it. I would move the rest of them aside so that they don't tempt me. And everything is done in just that one pencil. My entire gradient is done with it. I won't add anything else at all. So it's literally a monochromatic piece. The same as you would do if you were just using sketch pencils, like graphite pencils, that would create the grayscale effect. For Sepia photograph effect, one single brown pencil of your choice, but nothing else. Maybe black and white in there also, but traditionally, no. You would take it as low as a light cream, almost white, and as dark as a dark brown that's almost black. But again, there are two types of sepia. You have the sepia photograph type, which is what I just described, and then there's the sepia painting type, the traditional sepia that was gray, green, and brown, and that's evolved into being allowed to use all of the browns that are out there, and we saw the chart for that as well. There's some reddish tones in there, and pinkish tones, and orange, and green, and all sorts of different tones of brown. So for the sepia style painting, using different colors, like you did in your coloring, Cindy, then you can use the purple and the pink and the yellow, as long as it mostly stays in like the brownish tones.
Lori asked if you were adding a light layer of color into the white areas.
Eventually,
a while ago.
Okay, yes.
They thought you were doing it at the time with
when I was working with this burnt ochre, correct? I was adding it a little bit because that's how you create the gradient. The way that I create the gradient is that I add. Let me demonstrate on my doll again here. So I added the white. Let's do the other cheek because apparently I overworked the first one. So I added the white, and I added a little bit less of the white going out, and then I took my Q-tip and I blended it. I blended it and I blended it, so I have stronger white in the center and more pale white around. And then when I was adding burnt ochre, I was adding it stronger on the side here, and then lighter over the white, so that they're actually going over each other. The layer of white is now underneath and the layer of brown is over it. But then I'm adding with less and less and less pressure going towards it, but there is an overlap of these two colors. And that's how the gradient is created. That's how you get this very smooth transition from brown to white. But not all the way. I do want to keep the white because I'm going for dramatic lighting. I'm going for like a strobe light in the studio kind of lighting. But for instance, if this was a candlelight or sunset light, I would go over the white with burnt ochre, and then with some yellows, maybe yellow ochre and peach and a cream.
Sam says that the chocolate was amazing.
Nice.
Well, the champagne was yummy, but the coconut was just a bit blah. But she has a goal to only eat 2 a day.
Okay, that's an excellent goal. We wish you all the best with it. Wait, how many boxes do you have? 2 a day is gonna last a really long time. Okay, so at this point, I have my gradient established very well. I have my dark shadows. I have my light highlights, and I'm starting to suggest the actual skin color with this middle brown tone, which is a burnt ochre, which I was tricked into using again. I was actually done with it. But there is no right or wrong way here. There's no too much color or too little color. You can use 20 different pencils here or 2 only, and you can still achieve an amazing effect. So it's all very personal. I'm going to switch to an orange. This is a pumpkin orange because I do want the light that's shining on the skin to be warm. So I'm going to add the orange in those same areas, the gradient meeting areas that I just demonstrated on the doll, very lightly. I'm barely touching the paper. And in these areas where dark meets light, I'm adding some orange to suggest that the light that's shining on her face is a warm light. So it could be sunlight, could just be a warm light bulb, but it is a warm light. And to make it even warmer, you can add yellows to these areas. In Mel's coloring, she used yellow in the area where brown meets white, and it was a very cool effect. It was absolutely correct for the coloring that she did. So there's no right or wrong color in here. Okay.
Sam bought a small box of maybe 50, but she bought 2 of everything to share with Lionel.
Ah, cool.
And Cindy's kind of in love with the shiny silver on the forehead cheek area.
Oh, cool. All right. Tell us the story, tech support.
Tech support on the spot. The workers finished the first part of the back deck.
Oh, yeah. Can we show them? Do you think?
We could if they want to see.
Because I think at least 3 of you who are here today, maybe more of you, were with us during the Christmas show, the private Christmas stream that we had for friends and family. I shared that link on Patreon, so on only patrons.
I thought you were going to say you shared it on Facebook.
No, I didn't share it on Facebook, but I did share it with the patrons, and I know that several of them were with us on Christmas. So, which means that they saw the skeletal deck.
Well, if you guys want to see, I can go outside and do a quick show of it. They finished the flooring.
Really cool.
Yeah, they came in yesterday, which was Saturday, and finished it out so that they could start on the
they're quite
front part on Monday.
Determined to keep making progress on it. Well, we also have a minor complication with the construction because
we do.
Oh, the sun.
Oh yeah, that's minor.
Minor. Yes, the sun is so brutal this time of year. If you leave a board, any piece of wood out there for any length of time, it warps immediately. Things dry and change shape. So brutal out there. So everything that they're working with needs to be immediately nailed down or screwed down or otherwise like, attached permanently so that the wood doesn't change shape in the sun. And the deck, last night, dogs were barking in the night, so I got up with a flashlight to go outside to see what's going on. And it must have been 2 in the morning. And I went out and I went to the edge of the deck and I used my flashlight to see if there was anything in the distance worth paying attention to. Saw nothing.
Rabbits.
Probably just dogs barking at rabbits, yeah. And then I turned around and I saw like the entire Milky Way overhead and I felt like it was all around me. It was like I was on a spacewalk. I came back to bed and I was like, dude,
She woke me up.
I was just out on a space.
In space.
And like I've seen our night sky before. Like it's always there. We always see the Milky Way. It's always amazing. But somehow being on the deck, I guess being a little bit higher off the ground and seeing more of it, it was just like I was on the edge of the galaxy. It was incredible. I was there for a while before I came back to bed.
Yeah, she was gone for a long time. So yeah, they said that they would like to see. I have
so you'll take 'em?
I have the mobile cam set up. Yeah, do you want to? You just gonna stay here and talk?
I'll just sit here and keep coloring if you want to talk to them while you show it.
Oh, it's your show.
No, I want them to see the deck.
Okay.
So they'll have your audio, correct?
They will have my audio. Let me flip the camera microphone around so it points at me.
So I will not speak.
Well, you can also speak. I think it'll have both. We'll find out here in a second.
I'll just let you speak. Plus, I imagine you won't be able to stay out there for too long.
Yeah, it's probably pretty brutal.
Between the brutal heat and the horse flies, I bet you'll come right back. In the meantime, I'll switch to dark umber. It's a very, very dark brown.
You're no longer on that camera.
Okay. Well,
Here.
tell them that I switched to dark umber.
Well, they can still hear you. They just can't. Here, you want to show the dark umber?
Dark umber. I switched to it.
It's just darkness.
It's just darkness.
All right, let's go. Try not to knock over any of the camera equipment as I extract myself from the studio. Hey, look, tech support. Hello, everybody.
Nice.
So, this door here is funny. The layout of the house actually has this as the front door. Where's my finger? There we go. This is the front door, but we built the house with the wider picture windows and the sliding glass door. Can I get the picture windows up there? Yeah. So we built that to face the mountains, which have a better view. So this is really the back door, but it's the only door that we ever use besides the kitchen door. But now that we've built this deck, like we've literally used this door more in the last 2 weeks than we have in the 3 years that we've lived here. So now, if I open and blind you all, here we have the first part of the deck. So that's another part of the deck. If I walk over to this, so yeah, so that's the outside of Lisa's office. That's the outside of my office. Over there is the dog den where our it's their totally safe enclosed space. And then yeah, and then here's and you know, what are we? We're like 3 feet off the ground, 8 off the ground. And there's just something about being slightly higher than the ground at the same level as the interior of the house, which is also on posts. There's a dog. That it just changes. Like that, so that's gonna be like a pantry area. And right now it's just basically where the dogs hang out because it's nice and shaded. So I will take you back inside now. And I'll actually just show the front part of the house really quick so you guys get an idea of what we're going to plan here. So this is the living room. I apologize that it's a mess. That's the couch where we sit and we watch
The expense.
Movies on that TV right there. That's not a real gun. So this sliding glass door opens out into... Okay, so you don't really have a sense of scale here, but basically from the edge over here and then out to where you see that the cross pieces have started, that's 4 meters out from where I'm standing right now. And then all the way across to, not there, to here, this is going to be the new studio. So this is 4 meters wide and it's 8 meters to here, so that's probably another 4 meters there. So like 4 meters wide by 12 meters. And we're building that just to be a film studio. Then outside of that is going to be covered deck area. There's a roof above me that you can't see that we're going to extend all the way out and then screen that in. And then this will just be pergola deck area over here. It's like, when I show it to you on the screen, it looks much larger than it actually is. But then we're going to have this. This is just going to be, see if I can get it to change its. So we're going to fill in this wall here. We're going to take that sliding glass door and move it out. And then over here in what is our current dining room, we are going to take this window and remove it and turn it into a doorway. So you'll be able to go into the studio from here, come all the way across to the other side, which corresponds to this room here where there's somebody drawing.
Hello.
Hello. Squishing your head. Squishing your head. Squish, 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 squish. And we're going to take that window that you can't see behind the big light there, and we're going to do the same thing as on the other side. We're going to take it out and move it, but then we're going to cut it all the way down to the floor and turn it into an
great
entrance.
hall.
Yeah, so you'll be able to come into this room. Wait, do we are doing that here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be able to come into this room. We keep changing our plans. Come into this room, go into the studio, walk all the way down to the other studio, and come out the other side. And so it'll just be, we're calling it the Great Hall.
The Great Hall. It's official. How is it outside?
It's bright and warm. What are you doing here? Oh, we're doing an over-the-shoulder shot.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm adding my darkest color to the shadows. Dark umber. All right, that was fun. I could see on the screen.
Could you?
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
I'm not sure how to answer that question. How do you want to be doing on time? We've been streaming for an hour and 20 minutes.
For an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, well, we try to keep these under 90 minutes, but we tend to fail. So I think...
Because we don't have a measurable goal.
Yes, because we don't have a measurable goal, we just kind of
90 dog minutes.
Vaguely decide that we want 90 minutes. I will use 2 more colors on this and wrap it up. And then we can take last minute questions. So for my last colors, I will use a very light gray. That's a 10% cool gray. And a very dark something. Blue, which I didn't bring. Do you think you can find a very dark blue in that box over there while I do light?
Yeah.
Something with a really terrible Prismacolor name. You can turn that little light on.
It's okay.
That little light so that you can see the colors. It should be on the top pile of pencils that I just dumped in there.
Cerulean blue.
Does it look blue?
Pretty blue to me.
It's too light. Find me something that looks almost black.
Almost black?
Yeah.
A blue that looks black?
Yeah.
Violet.
No. This is fun. I should send tech support to get pencils more often. Okay, so the...
China blue.
Darker.
Seriously?
Yeah. Find me something that's like a... Dioxazine...
Indigo blue.
Yes.
Really? Dark green.
No. Indigo blue or darker.
This one already looks black
I'll take the indigo blue.
Dioxazine purple hue.
That's the one. Yeah, thank you. See, they look almost black. So I like to use these very dark blues that are almost black and use them over brown to create the nearly black effect. I will use that for the eyebrows and the eyelashes and the darkest parts of the skin and the shadows here, like under the little skull and the cheekbone, under the chin. Really, really dark blues mixed with brown will create a nearly black effect that has more depth to it than black. And if it's not dark enough, add some red there as well, and it will do the trick. It will actually create a color that looks even darker than black, but has depth to it. It's very cool. So with this light gray, the main reason for this light gray is to be a blender. So it just blends my gradient nicer. Because the paper that I'm using has a little bit of tooth to it. You can see the texture of the paper as I'm coloring. Using multiple layers and using blenders will allow for your coloring to look smoother, as if there is no texture on the paper. And that creates a more realistic effect. I really like doing that. Sometimes texture is a good effect, and you certainly don't need to avoid it. But for skin tones, I like to go both ways. Like, I like to take the part of the coloring that's the most important, like her face, and make that super polished and detailed and get rid of all the paper texture and stuff and make it look almost hyper realistic, and then use less and less detail in the objects and things, decorations around her. So like on this raven, I hardly did any polishing. It's just like, there's a raven there. He's not that important. Her face is important. So that difference of texture will make the part that you spend more time on and made more realistic look even more realistic by contrast. So that's a little trick that I like to use. And in all of my work, there's usually a part of the drawing, coloring, painting that's more important than anything else, which usually is the face of the character if you're doing a portrait. So I spend more time on that. I make it more detailed, a little bit more realistic, and then everything else is a little bit more abstract with less attention paid to it, but still completed. So blend, 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 blend. Now I'll switch to my really dark blue, and I will add it to the shadows. Again, like Lori said, I'm working from the edge in. Very good advice. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I do actually do it that way. Just sometimes you have a certain technique and you don't really think about it. You just do it that way. So it takes someone to point it out to you for you to realize that, that is actually what I do, and here's why. So thank you for that. So adding my blue to the darkest shadows. Remember that you do want gradient in the shadows. You don't want, I mean, it depends. Like if you're going for a noir film look, then you certainly want really flat black and a really flat white. But if you're going for a more regular photographic effect, then you want the gradient in the dark areas as well. So for instance, this part of the under the chin and on the neck is the part that is the deepest. So it will be the darkest. It's important to make sure that there is an actual line defined here, that from here to here isn't just a solid block of color, because that will make it look like she doesn't have a chin at all. So it's a subtle definition. You definitely want this part of the under the chin to be also dark, but you want this part where the chin meets the neck to be the darkest part. And it's very subtle. You may not even be able to see it on a photo, but it does come across. The mind picks up on it when people see the coloring. And a lot of times you will look at something and you will know that it's off, but you may not know why. So another thing that's important to assess or to ask someone's opinion is like, I feel that something's off, but I'm not really sure what it is. And another person may be able to point that out to you. It's like, well, I think what's off is that I don't feel like there's definition on her ear or something. And you may not have noticed it because you spent so much time on her lips that you completely forgot about the ear. And that happens to me a lot as well. Sometimes I'll create something and then I'll take a photo of it. And when I look at a photo of it later, I'll see all the little things that I might have missed. like, oh, it totally didn't look that way to me when I was coloring it, but now it does. So certainly taking photos of your art is very helpful. Taking black and white photos of your art is extremely helpful because you will see the light and shadow placement, and if there is enough contrast in your piece, because contrast is more important than color. And also, if you're drawing, for coloring, it's less important because the image is already there. But for drawing, if you're not sure if your proportions are correct, put your piece up against the mirror. And if in the mirror it still looks fine, then it's fine. But if in the mirror it looks lopsided, then your proportions are off.
Lori would like to know if she can use that blue on her image to fix her chin.
I didn't think her chin needs fixing, but certainly if she feels like it needs more definition, yeah, that would be a good color to use. Totally. Or a dark gray, or I don't remember the exact colors in her piece, but yes, any kind of a dark blue. If you do use it though, Lori, make sure to use it in other places as well. So if you add it here just by itself, it will be a little bit out of place. So add it to the darkest parts of the rest of the face. Like inside the mouth here will be dark as well, the nostrils, the eyebrows, a little bit around the hair over here. So whatever new color you introduce, make sure to introduce it in enough other places that it's balanced. But you can also just pick the darkest color of the colors that you've already used in your coloring and use that to build up that contrast under the chin if you feel like you need more. But honestly, looking at your work, I didn't think that there was anything wrong with your chin. Okay, so obviously we can keep working on this until the cows come home, but I think we've established the light nicely. We did a nice skin tone, a little bit different from this one. I think I might actually like the new one better. And I'm gonna call this done for this demo. I don't think there's anything else that I would like to add here. Maybe, okay, I lied again. I will add my darkest color, which is, I can't even read it anymore, it's getting so small. 90% cool gray, which is the closest thing to black that I have, but still not solid black. And I will add it just to the eyelashes, the eyebrows, and this part in the mouth that's inside, that's dark, and to the nostrils. And that's it. Here you go, dark skin tone. Notice again how much white we have on this character. Like most of the cheek that's facing us is either pure white or very pale cream color. And we have the real color only shows up in the parts where the dark meets the light, like on this part of the cheek, on the nose, a little bit over here, and then the shadows are greatly exaggerated. And because it's a dark skin tone, I went with a lot of middle browns, purple for the shadows, and a little bit of soft grays. And I added some orange to show that the light is warm. If I wanted it to be even warmer, I would add some more yellow ochre to the lighter parts of the gradients. And that's it. It's important to not overdo these effects, and certainly not to use actual solid black. What are you giggling at over there?
Sam says baby pencil is almost as cute as baby Groot.
I am Groot. I will call this pencil Groot. He needs to get a little bit smaller to be baby Groot. I have some ridiculously short pencils that are too tiny to sharpen at this point. I actually have to use pliers to hold them, to sharpen them. I have a box of them. I'll show you on the next show. They're quite adorable. And I don't know why I still keep them. I think because they're so adorable, I just can't bring myself to throw them away. They're too cute. All right. So while tech support is gathering questions for me, I will show you some things to tease you guys with, because I like to end every live stream with a teaser. So let's see what I got for you today.
I like when she ends my live streams with a teaser too. The private live streams that we have.
Never mind. Oh man, man, this folder doesn't even hold my stuff anymore. Everything's getting messed up in there. I'm getting a new folder made by Jo Beth. You guys know Jo Beth. She is an amazing colorist. She has her own YouTube channel, and she makes journals, handmade leather journals, and she will be making me a new folder for my art in 2020, which is extremely exciting because this folder has been with me for 13 or 14 years already, and it's quite good. It served me well, but it's not really enough anymore, and it's also quite ugly. So I'm getting an upgrade in the year to come. This?
It's the wrong music, but it's the only music I know for teasers.
This is your teaser music. It 4 months ago, I ran my first silent film on YouTube. First silent film I ever made, which was the silent film Color Along. And I also ran it as an event in Tom, the Facebook group, where I invited you guys to color the page, the same page that I colored in the film. And as a prize, gave you until the end of the year. As a prize, the winner will get this original drawing of mine, which I will sign to the winner and send it out to him or her. And on Tuesday, which will be the last day of 2019, I will announce the winner of this Color Along event, and I will announce it in the show that I will publish that day, that I will release on YouTube that day. So everyone will know about it. It will be a big thing, a big revealing of the winner, and this is the prize that they get. So stay tuned for that on Tuesday, the last day of 2019. Very exciting. I am certainly excited to announce the winner of that event. And then another thing that I have to show you is something that I'm working on. It's not finished yet, and it's very difficult for me to share work that's not finished. As tech support
I haven't
knows.
even seen it. She just pulled this out of I don't even know where, and I just made like a crazy face at it.
Crazy face.
I have no idea what this is.
Like your dad's crazy face.
No, this is totally different from my dad's crazy
This is something that I'm working on with Dee and Jo Beth and Natalie as an artist collaboration. We each picked a vintage photo as an inspiration character, and the assignment is to bring that character to life through a medium that is a challenge to us, and also to somehow incorporate the concept of time. So I picked a character named Ruth, a real life character who's a dancer, a very, very famous traditional dancer whose specialty was costumes, and she lived for like a century. And so she danced in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, and she revolutionized the modern dance world, and her costumes were simply incredible. She was really into Chinese costumes and Indian costumes, and it was all about different religions and different celebrations. And one of the photos of hers that I really liked is her Siamese dancer, and I used that as my character. I don't know why I picked that particular character of hers. That's not at all what she looked like. Like, she wasn't Chinese. She was white American, but she had all these incredible costumes, and she would go into full character regardless of what ethnicity or nationality or religion she selected for that particular character, and she would design a dance based on that culture. And with this one, she had two umbrellas that she was twirling. And this is a very old black and white photo that I based this on. And somehow I saw her twirling these umbrellas, and I imagined them like turning the clock and turning the time. And I was thinking about how eternal her art is, and all that she's done for the world of dance. And there's some beautiful photos of her as an old lady where she still looks so glamorous and so full of life. And originally I wanted to incorporate one of her old woman photos in this as well, where her older face is in here, but it didn't work with the composition. So I just stayed with the young Ruth twirling her clock. And I did this in watercolor because I recently acquired several sets of watercolors and I've been playing with them. So it was important for me to work on a bigger canvas and work more freely. I tend to pay so much attention to detail with coloring pages and perfecting all the little details of the face that it's good, but it's important to take a step back from that and paint more freely, to just let yourself go and not fixate on perfection. So I did the whole thing in watercolor. It was a very big challenge for me to not go over the face with pencils and give it a ton of little details and stuff. But I did it, and I'm quite happy with the way that she came out. But I still want to add more stuff in this area. And I'm not really sure what I'm going to do there. I was thinking of doing a collage. And I have this vision of birds flying, maybe like birds flying towards the viewer. I'm not really sure, so I will still do more work on it. I am, of course, filming this. This will be a video episode once the girls submit their pieces as well. I think Natalie's already finished. I'm still waiting on Dee and Jabeth. We decided that we will give ourselves a month extension because the end of the year is just not a very productive time for anyone with the holidays and whatnot. So sometime towards the end of January, this should come out as a video where I explain more about where the idea came from and what the exact challenge was, and of course share the work of the other artists that I'm fortunate enough to be collaborating with. So stay tuned for that. And actually, I'm going to keep it pinned up here. And on that note, if you guys have any last minute questions for me before we wrap up this show, please speak now or hold your peace for another month. Or until you see me on Facebook later today.
No questions so far. People are just talking about how beautiful your painting is.
No.
It's a painting because it's watercolor,
it is.
right?
It's a watercolor.
It uses brushes, therefore it's a painting?
Yes, correct. Okay. It uses brushes.
Yes.
Therefore it's a painting.
See, tech support's got it all figured out.
All right. What about you? Do you have any questions or things to say to the colorists?
No. Keep coloring.
Keep coloring.
Keep coloring.
Well, we do, as we're waiting for any last minute questions, we do wish you guys a very happy and very safe end of the year. And we hope that the new year brings you more coloring and more exciting projects. I have a lot of exciting projects planned for 2020. Really exciting projects, and we're making some changes in the group as well. We'll have more events. We have a different way of judging events now. Mm-hmm. We just had our first event where the previous event finalists got to judge the event, right. And that was a huge success. All three of them agreed on the same finalist, and I also support their decision. I think they picked a really good one, and they picked her wisely. They explained why, and she was certainly very pleased with winning. And her prize is she gets to tell me what to draw next.
Oh. And
she gets to tell me how to run the show on that coloring page. Like what to do with it. Like draw so-and-so and teach me light direction.
Oh, interesting.
Or draw so-and-so and teach me a certain, I don't know, water sparkle effect.
That's cool.
And then
it's a great prize. That's like...
Yeah.
It's a great prize. Wow.
And everyone in the group also gets to have the page as a free gift.
Nice.
So that will be happening in the first weeks of February.
Okay.
Very exciting.
No questions. People are saying thanks and good night. Sam stayed up super late to be with us, so we should...
Thank you.
We should probably wrap up so she can go to sleep.
Well, thank you for sharing your chocolates with us in spirit. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye-bye.